Hi there, I'm Ahsan Ali Shaw, and you're watching me live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And today we are going to talk about global mass poisoning, pesticide poisoning. And last week we had a very detailed discussion on global warming. And today we are going to focus on, and it led us to this topic global warming, global mass poisoning, and pesticide poisoning. And speaking of pesticide poisoning, it is the world's most serious and most neglected issue of our time. So, what is pesticide poisoning? Pesticide poisoning is when pesticide chemicals impact non-targeted living organisms like human beings, insects, and other wildlife. And a small residue of pesticide chemicals also enter into the soil, air, our food, and many other edible things. So, in other words, it is not only impacting the farmers and the wildlife and insect, but it is also impacting all of us. And according to a study, 44% of the farmers are exposed to the pesticide chemicals and also pesticide poisoning. The rate is much higher in the third world countries and the developing countries because of the lack of control and no authority, food, or check and balance. And pesticide poisoning, global mass poisoning is our topic for discussion today. And to discuss this topic, my guest is Edward Konowicz, and he has joined us from Virginia, United States. Hey, Ed.
No. Hi, hey, how is everyone? How
Everyone is
are
good. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
you?
So, thank you for introducing me to this topic. Uh, I was reading it yesterday, and it is just the tip of the iceberg that people are not talking about.
Yeah, it's
The
horrible.
more,
It's one of the crimes against humanity, from
yes,
Agent Orange in Vietnam, which is a war strategy, to modern herbicides and insecticides. Millions of farmers and farm workers are being directly poisoned. And people who
yes,
work for power companies, for the cities, because they're using herbicides instead of picking weeds. And instead of cutting bushes, they're putting down herbicides.
and the rate is much higher there in the third world countries. I know because some of my friends and other people locally, people talk about the use of chemicals in the fields, and we also talk about it, but there's no media coverage. No one is talking about it at the upper level.
Because it's
It's
distracted
like
by so called climate change. We're supposed to talk
yes,
about climate change, not the poisoning of people, which is
yeah,
crazy. People are
even
dying from
yeah. It
cancer
also
caused by herbicides and insecticides, and they're talking about CO2 as a distraction so these corporations don't feel responsible for all the people they've killed and crippled.
and it also falls under the category of climate change, but it's the
Yeah, but
most neglected.
you're not allowed to talk about anything real. As soon
Yeah,
as you start telling the truth, you're censored
yeah, yes,
or you're fired
that's
from
what
your
happened.
job.
Yeah, that's what happened. I think with Jesse.
Your volume went away.
Okay, I think that's what happened with Jesse.
Okay.
Is it clear? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think that's what happened with Jesse.
But Jesse who? You say Jesse and then it's censored.
Okay, just okay. uh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but you get one word censored. That's really strange.
Okay,
After you
okay.
say Jesse, there's a blank.
Okay. But I think that's what happened with Jesse.
I can't hear you. After you
Okay.
say Jesse, no sound comes out.
Okay. No, that's
Well,
what
Jesse
happened with
who?
him.
Jesse who?
Yeah, Hall. Jesse Hall.
Jesse Hall. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's an
The thing is, it's so obvious from Agent Orange in Vietnam, where it was used as a weapon. Agent Orange even killed, supposedly, one of the general's sons. A general had a son fighting on the ground, got exposed to Agent Orange, and died like within 5 years. And the number one pollution or poisoning of the earth, besides the herbicides and insecticides, is military. And we're supposed to talk about cars and CO2 and coal, but we're not supposed to talk about weapons. And we're supposed to see nuclear weapons and nuclear power plants as green. They're not green. They're one
yes,
of the most pollutant systems that you can have in terms of thermal pollution, in terms of expensive, damaging heavy metals to handle those temperatures. So we're not hearing anything about the poisoning of the earth, and that includes solar panels. Some solar panels are more efficient, but we need to ask the question, are they recyclable? Are they
yes.
toxic?
Mm.
And you're not
And
allowed to ask that question. Poisoning is supposed to be ignored.
yeah,
We're all
and
supposed to ignore poisoning.
what about the batteries, the lithium lead or the mobile phone, smartphone batteries? They're also toxic and they are also polluting the environment
Yeah,
because
the
it
lithium,
also.
people were promoting lithium to even be put in drinking water like fluoride. Fluoride is a poison, it's an
Mm,
acid,
mm,
it damages your body.
mhm,
Now, you use acid on a wart,
mm,
but you just apply it to the wart, you don't drink it.
mhm. Yes,
So if fluoride helps the teeth enamel, you put it on the teeth enamel, you don't drink it. You don't drink
mhm,
acid.
yes,
And in low doses, well, if it's in water and you drink a lot of water, those low doses accumulate. So we're dealing with a lot of hidden poisons, not only herbicides, insecticides. Our water is even polluted by the drugs people use, by the medicines people use, is polluting the environment. And so
mm,
we have a lot of kidney dialysis, liver failures. The kidneys and the liver handle most of the toxicity in our body. And of course, so does our skin. That's why working out is good, because when you sweat, you're excreting. And also when you're breathing, you're excreting. And now we're supposed to wear masks where we're breathing our own waste and bacteria that we normally put out.
yeah.
But the real
And
problem is not global warming or global climate change. The
it's
problem is
quite.
global poisoning. It's
Yes,
killing people.
yes,
And, and, and the government is so criminal, they're using a distraction of climate change, total distraction away from the direct poisoning of people.
and when I was studying uh, uh, pesticide poisoning yesterday, it also came up that it is also pesticide chemicals. They are also used as a suicide. The people use these chemicals, especially the students and farmers. They use it to commit suicides. No
Yeah,
one is
because
talking
what
about it.
happens with a toxin, your nervous system and hope is depressed. Toxins cause abnormal behavior such as clinical depression,
Yes,
like lead
and when they are
poisoning.
depressed,
Lead poisoning causes mental retardation.
yes,
So does mercury. So, and this is in the water, and the government has no concern for it.
yes.
So the global climate change is a distraction from the actual poisoning of people. And people are
So
so
when
ignorant, they're just focusing on what the propaganda tells them to focus upon.
So when farmers are exposed to the pesticide poison, so it is impacting their mind. It is influencing their mind in terms of depression and high stress and mental retardation. When they are in that state, in a very depressed and retarded state, so they commit suicide.
Now, well, one of the first symptoms of lead poisoning and most poisoning is irritability. The nervous, see,
Yeah,
when you use an insecticide, what most insecticides are, and caffeine in coffee is an insecticide to protect the plant. So you got caffeine and tea, You got caffeine in coffee beans. You have caffeine in a lot of natural plants. It's an insecticide, which works like an amphetamine. It speeds up the nervous transmissions. And since insects are real flitty, you speed up their nervous reactions. You damage them. While you speed up a human being's nervous reaction, you deplete their catecholamines and other chemicals that give them, their endorphins that allows them to feel relaxed and at ease. So they
Yeah.
can't sleep because they're irritable. They can't sleep because they can't relax because they've been poisoned. And we're all supposed to salute to the militaries of the world, and the biggest polluter in the world is the military. Wars are the biggest pollution, the biggest poisoning of people.
What about the weapon
We're supposed to
industry?
ignore that. We're supposed to
Yeah.
totally ignore that.
Yeah. What about the weapon industry?
Yeah, the weapon industry, particularly because, there's no such thing as, quote, depleted uranium. It's like calling a vaccine failure a breakthrough case. The uranium is not depleted of radioactivity. It's just not good for a nuclear reactor. It's frequently more dangerous. In fact, the nuclear reactors were built to supply more dangerous uranium and plutonium to weapons so that they would explode. So it's not depleted uranium, it's weapon grade uranium.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're dealing with is propaganda that is misusing terms, distracting people. And the number one epidemic is not a viral epidemic, particularly. It's
It's a
cancer.
yeah, yeah. I think pesticide poisoning is also one of the cause of cancer. It could be.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy won a legal case against Bayer. I believe Bayer bought out Monsanto, or one of the other companies, which makes glyphosate, which is a herbicide. And I got a letter from my electric company that rather than trim the trees and the bushes, they're going to use herbicides this year.
Yeah,
So things are getting worse, not better. The
yeah.
current politicians are poisoning the world more, not less, under
So
under the illusion that the problem is climate change. The
yeah,
problem is number one problem is not climate change. It's poisoning the environment.
yes, yes, indeed. And speaking of cancer, I think that's why cancer rate is increasing because of the pesticide poisoning. A small residue of those chemicals entered into our food, and who knows what about it's also entered into the soil and also air.
Yeah, you get cut off a little bit. Let me explain this. It's kind of interesting how the government and the medical profession is lying with statistics. The expression in English is figures don't lie, but liars figure. More people are surviving cancer. So they produce the survival rate of cancer is going up and up. But do you know why? It's not from advanced treatments. It's because younger people are getting cancer. And a younger person who gets cancer, who is only 5 years old, 10, 20, 30, they have a higher rate of survivability. So as more people get cancer, younger people get it, and they're able to survive at a higher rate. So we're taught on the television the survivability of cancer is increasing as if the medical profession is improving and as if cancer is less of a threat when it's really more of a threat.
How?
Yeah, your sound is intermittent.
Okay, let me refresh my page. Let me refresh my page.
So my point is the survivability of cancer is largely based that younger people are getting cancer. And as a result, a younger person in their teens or 20s or 30s are more likely to survive cancer than someone in their 60s or 70s. The cancer rate is increasing. The cancer survivability is increasing because more people are getting it.
So, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, so how it is impacting how the I think people are getting or our immune system is getting used to the to fight against cancer cells. That's why surviving rate is increasing.
Well, I think it is changing the effect. I think before people had lung cancer, and now the lungs just get so damaged. And I think this is a lot of the respiratory problems are from pollution. Wuhan, where supposedly the virus started, was a highly polluted city, so polluted that people were marching in protest. So I think the toxic reaction is more deadly. See, cancer is a slow process, 2 or 3 years generally, unless it's pancreatic or other serious cancers.
Yeah. And
Generally, it's a long battle, but now people have been so worn down by the toxins, they get cancer and they'll have a stroke, they'll have lung failure, they'll have a heart attack, which is their body can no longer fight it as well. So it's not true. The body is not adapting to the toxins.
mm,
It's worn down. So now people are dying from pneumonia, they're dying from strokes, they're dying from heart attacks. They can't get to the stage of fighting cancer anymore.
mm. So
And there's a
that's
big
why it is.
cover up because about half of the toxins are not herbicides, insecticides, or military weapons. About half come from the drugs doctors are using on patients.
And the other half is from the pesticide poisoning. The food we eat comes from the same uh, product of those pesticide poisoning or chemical used in our food.
And public groups are not allowed to build. Everything is controlled now. So you and I have no expertise here.
Uh,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm a normal reader. I keep, you know, keep current with the major news channels and what is seen as common knowledge. I'll research it, which is I'll see an article that interests me in a local paper or on a television station. I don't watch TV. I'll go to their internet platform, and then I'll look up a little more information about it.
yeah.
So I go a
I do
step
the same.
further. I not only stay informed with the media, I'll go look up the information.
Yeah.
So,
I do.
like I looked up a lot about nuclear energy. It's not safe. It's not safe. It's not green. It's got a million times more heat than normal. You have a problem with the waste. They're lying to you,
Yeah.
which is it's almost impossible to contain the radioactivity. The radioactivity does produce lung problems. A lot of the carcinogens, which includes nuclear power plants, affect the lungs. And now
Leave them on
everything's
the.
supposed to be diagnosed as a virus infection rather than as a toxic reaction. Asthma, I think, to a large extent, is a toxic reaction. People's immunity systems are overloaded, so they don't get to the point of cancer. They're stuck in the toxic reaction to it, which could be
There's
lung
a.
problems, it could be joint problems, it could be arthritis, it could be asthma. They're stuck in the almost allergic. So what we're seeing is a huge push, just like global warming is hiding or global climate change is hiding the poisoning of the earth, autoimmune diseases are hiding the toxic poisoning of the body. So the medical profession is not talking about toxic reactions. They're talking about the autoimmune system as if it's a genetic problem and not a toxic problem.
And there's a question mark on the recycling of when we talk about the recyclable material. There's also a question mark there. It is very difficult to recycle the lithium-ion batteries, but when we talk about the smartphone industry and the tech industry, they are using lithium-ion batteries in their product, and they are launching new product every year, a new model, a new
Yeah,
product
which is
every
ridiculous.
year.
We can't go with people buying cell phones every year or two and have
Yeah.
like 5 billion cell phones manufactured going into the dumps every 2 years, or a billion cell phones every year. This is an outrage.
Yeah, because
And
the rate is much higher. Even a million phones, if a million phones are damped down every year, so it's just do the math of the for the past 10 years, and you will have 10 millions of smartphone batteries or lithium-ion batteries. Are they being recycled? No, they are simply dumped down into the soil. So everything is being, the soil, water, air is being poisoned, and we are not talking about it.
no, I'm not talking about kidney dialysis and the rise of that. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare of the negligence and criminality of our governments and professions. If you're in a profession, whether it's chemistry, medicine, um, agriculture, and you speak out against the poisoning being done, you're fired.
Yes,
The criminals are running things.
yes.
And
I
people
think
have to begin waking up. They have to begin realizing the criminals are in power, and they're
yes,
being lied to about pollution. They're being lied to about global warming. They're being lied to about viruses, medical treatment. These people are not only not trustworthy, they don't even want to ever tell the truth. They're so embedded in their organized crime.
yeah. I think the better word is profiteers are running the world. Their main goal is to earn profit. Everything is free or not relevant to profit is not their concern.
Well, it's for the major corporations. Small
Yeah,
businesses and small corporations are bankrupting.
yeah,
It's not just profiteers, it's monopolists.
yeah. Monopolies. Monopoly is also the serious issue. So, how do you summarize it? Uh,
Well,
pesticide
we just got to
poisoning.
get people aware that global climate change is a distraction from the real problem, which is global poisoning. And there's so many poisons you can't summarize by one. We can't just use glyphosate or insecticide or chromium 6, which is used in power plants, or chloramines, which is improper chlorination of water, or fluoride, or so-called depleted uranium, or radioactive waste, heavy water, or lead, mercury. We know we can't focus on one because these criminals have gotten away with poisoning the earth with so many different toxic compounds. The average person can't keep up with hundreds of them.
Yes,
So all they want to
and
say is CO2. So people go around, it's real easy. Oh, carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide. Because they don't want to say chloramines, chromium 6. They don't want to say glyphosate. They don't want to say mercury. They don't want to say lithium. They don't want to say chloramines. They don't want to say drugs and quinones, fluoroquinones. They don't want to cite because they don't have the time to memorize the hundreds of poisons now being used.
yeah,
So they can go around and act like they're intelligent, like they're scientific. So they go around real happy with themselves and say the problem is CO2, the carbon
CO2.
footprint, and ignore the hundreds, if not thousands, of poisons that are now destroying the human race and the environment.
Yes, and I think we have covered major topics, some of the major questions that global warming is a serious issue, but it is just one part. There are hundreds of other chemicals that are poisoning the air, soil, food, and not only human beings, but also insects and wildlife. And we need to, I think, poisoning, global mass poisoning, or pesticide poisoning, and many other types of depleted uranium, lithium, and other chemicals, they are the real cause of the problem. They are the main problem of our time, and also the most neglected chemicals. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And we have just received one comment from LinkedIn, Zia Rahman from Karachi, Pakistan. Thank you, Zia. And thank you, Melissa, for joining us. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the comment box below. I'll answer it to you. Ed would get back to you as soon as he can. And thank you. Have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, midnight, wherever you are.